Order! Send Lowerhouse to save the house! Come on, the house!
Hello everybody and welcome to Lowerhouse Cricket Club's podcast, the Housecast. It's been quite a while since we've done it, so I've got a little bit excited this afternoon, looking forward to it, a bit of research and a bit of homework. Joe Martin and myself chat, probably once a week and talk about that, what we used to do in lockdown and how much fun it was. So we're going to really try our best to resurrect it and do it, maybe, hopefully at least once a month through the season to talk through the game. So without further ado, let's have a chat to the host. Joe Martin, thanks very much for sorting out the Zoom and for organising one of our guests. How are you doing, Joe?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, okay, thank you. Had a lovely weekend and quite entertaining, with a few functions. What about yourself? You've been out running? And
I have been out running, yeah. It's been very windy. I mean, the weather's just... But
how does it affect you, though? Does it affect you when, like, from 4 foot?
It's... I'm not very heavy, so trying to run up hills is quite challenging.
What about your hair? How does it impact your hair when you
wear a cap?
Wise move.
It definitely loses some.
Can I just say, I'm very heavy, and running up hills is also challenging.
Oh, dude, how's it going, Dude?
Great, thanks. Great. I thought the highlight of the last week or so in the cricket club world was Maureen Stansfield winning a cricket bat on New Year's draw. That's tickled me. Excellent fun. That great fun.
Yeah, and I suppose that was at the AGM for the listeners who didn't go. And her son and an MD did a fantastic job in running the AGM, and he actually he was responsible for getting someone to draw out his mum winning a cricket bat. So if anyone ever thinks that any of our draws are fixed, then that's got to be confirmation that they're not. It was interesting that, and a comment on Facebook, I think it made everyone laugh. So, Dooch, are you how's things going in the cricket side, the management of the cricket side on the build up to the season?
All right, yeah, I think we're in a good spot from that point of view. Obviously, we could do with a bit of assistance from the weather, but I think we're in as good a position as we can be at the moment.
Yeah, that's good. I'm sure as we talk through this evening with the two guests that we've got on, we'll get some more clarity and some information around how the season's going to go. And we can all get fed up with the weather, and it is horrible, but there's nothing we can do about it. We've just got to manage what happens and move on from there. So if I can just firstly introduce the first guest. He does so much work down the club, keeps it ticking along without much, doesn't make many noises and screaming and shouting at other people. It's the MD, Matt Stanner. How's it going, Stanner?
I'm good, Jez, you?
Yeah, all fine. I enjoyed Friday night. I don't know about you. I don't know what you were like Saturday morning, but it was a good crack that Friday night. Some old faces.
Yeah, I think we worked out that there was a combined alcohol intake over the years of Rose Grovers of about 12.5 million pints, we calculated, didn't we? Very fat packet, but I bet we're not far off,
It was funny that for our other guest and for the two Joes, we all got, like you do when you had a couple of pints, talking about how many pints will have been drunk by the people in the club, because there were some real characters there, old and young. And Stan worked it out. It's about, I think it was 250,000 per person. So each group of 4, there was 1 million pints stood there. So you can imagine it all got a bit daft, but we're lovely people. Pete Atherton's 70th. So good to see how they enjoying himself and singing at the end. But no, it was a good crack. So, Stanley, if I can just have 2 or 3 minutes around the AGM and the way you spoke at the AGM. You came across fantastically well. very understanding of the questions that were asked of you. And I don't want you to go through it all now in exactly the same format, but I think it's worth you giving the listeners a bit of an update as to how the club is financially, the fact that, you know, we're now coming to one limited company, how that worked very briefly for those who couldn't make the AGM, if you don't mind.
No problem at all, Jess. So just to talk about the limited company side of it to start with, going back quite a few years, the club was split into two. So we had the bar, which was Lowerhouse Village, and then we had the club, which was Lowerhouse Cricket Club CRC Limited. And those two legal entities have sort of coexisted for a number of years now. And essentially, the bar makes big donations to the cricket side every year that funds the cricket side. Because without the bar, we wouldn't be able to fund the cricket to the level that we do. So that's been the case for a number of years. But the reason why that was done was to do with a thing called cask, which is a lot of tax breaks basically for amateur sports clubs. But unfortunately, the rules of cask are quite tight on what you can pay out in salaries. So our pro budget was always above the level that cask allowed. So we've never been able to be cask. So if anything, it's just confused matters a little bit over the years by having these two businesses. So we made the decision a couple of years ago to bring it back all under one roof, which we've done. And that's been successful. We had a good year financially with record bar sales and turned a profit of about £13,500 for the year pre-tax. And yeah, everything on that side is going in the right direction. And I dare say that had it not rained from June to the end of September, would have made far more money on the bars and sold a lot more beer. But as it is, it was still record anyway.
I mean, and the balance sheet looks great. Is that Charlie Coffin in? And he's now walking straight back out. I think he just brought Joe Kebab.
He's just delivered the pros car down to the club so it can be valeted in the morning. He messaged me to ask me if I'd follow him down, but I couldn't do because I'm here with you guys.
All right, I thought it was a kebab he gave him. No, Stanny, and you're 100% right about the weather at the end of the season. And I think it's worth just quickly mentioning here a big thanks to the people who have supported what you're doing and what the committee and and the board are doing, board of directors are doing, and all the bar staff. It's phenomenal turnover that when you think back, literally, 10, 15 years as to what we would turn over then to be pushing 200 grand and beyond is a great credit to you but everyone that the community that are coming along and supporting it. So brilliant, Stanley. Thanks very much.
Before I don't want to go into too much detail, but I think before the Worsley Cup win, we did about 30 grand a year over the bar.
Yeah.
We then did the first refurb, which pushed it up towards about 80 grand a year. So that more than doubled it. And then I think that the subsequent refurb that we did, which was aided by a lot of the COVID money that was out there and the bounce back loans and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of a risk there. And I remember talking about it on the podcast at the time, a bit of a risk there that you sort of take a punt that you're going to spend the money and it'll lead to sort of better business. And it's worked well. Yeah. The picnic benches in the summer are always full, whether it be a second team game, third team game, fourth team game. If there's anything like decent weather on a Saturday afternoon down there, the place is busy. And I remember playing obviously a lot of second team cricket, and it genuinely was one man and a dog stuff. That's not the case anymore.
Stanley,
you go down there on a Saturday and it's busy.
You mentioned Worsley Cup and pre and post Worsley Cup win. Do you think was that just a coincidence, or do you think that was a genuine shot in the arm and we've improved off the field since then?
I think the Worsley Cup win reminds everybody that you're there.
Yeah.
So getting everybody there
some new people there as well.
Yeah, getting everybody there that day in 2004 reminds everybody that the place is there and that it's a decent place to go. But at the same time, I think it's the kind of thing that gives the club and the people involved in the club that bit of momentum, isn't it? To really push on and say, right, well, actually, we can do this. We've been the rubbing rags for years and years, but we don't have to be. We can be the best that we can be. So yeah, I think I won't say it's a coincidence, Joe. I think it's just it all comes together all at once, all at the right time in a way.
Yeah, it's almost momentum, isn't it, Stanley? You know, it's the same time the juniors are, you know, coming on massively. I know we've got all the Rugrats that came through, and then Ben's group of people that came through that age group. But that just kept doubling and fourfold, and then the parents come, and as you say, you know, some second team games in the middle of summer, July, and it's red hot, and there were no one watching. Whereas now, you know, they're watching the kids training. So I know it's a real credit, but we have to rest on our laurels. Let's, you know, keep moving forward with that, as you all are, and making sure people come down. So enough of that.
Just on that, Jez, I'll just the other thing as well, and a lot of people ask about this from other clubs and things, and the likes of Frank does a great job of tapping into the community. So we've started doing like a pre-season leaflet drop. But the actual demographic of the area where we are now has changed massively in the last 10 years as well, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Look at all the houses where Ben himself lives, where the schools used to be. You've a lot of prosperous, what you class as sort of prosperous areas, prosperous housing there, with young families that need things to do at the weekend and places to spend the money. So thankfully, I think we're benefiting from the fact that the area has been regenerated so much, and it's now one of probably the nicest areas in the town to be part of.
Yeah, and it's safe, it's friendly, the kids can be there, and that is life, you know, husband and wife going out for a pint, the kids would always stop at home, or they weren't allowed, or it'd just be the husband, whereas now it's full family and everything that happens. So anyone listening, if you want to come down, feel free, you'll be more than welcome. So anyway, I'm sure that the listeners would want to listen to some cricketers and some what's going on in the cricket world. So just a quick recap that Joe Beneducci is overseeing the selection side and assisting with the cricket section. But and I haven't done my research here, the however many year we've got the captain of the first team on this evening, and we're going to talk to him about cricket. Hey Ben, how you doing?
Oh, Jez, evening, chaps.
Good lad, good lad. How many years have you done it now, Ben? The captaincy?
Yeah, so I think my first year was 2017. But we had the COVID season as well thrown in there. So yeah, sixth or seventh year, depending how you look at it.
Yeah, I think
your fifth season was Hockey's fifth season, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I think we can call it 7, Ben, because there's enough hassle and stress in that middle year as well. So congratulations. You know, you've done a fantastic job. Your playing ability, you know, goes without saying. You're one of the best batters in the league. Your commitment and your dedication towards Lowerhouse and cricket in general is fantastic. So, you know, without putting you on the spot too much, we know about the problems we had with the pro, with Batchov not coming over, and we've now got the Australian. Can you talk us through how it's been this winter and your liaison with Stanley in your words as a skipper and as a player?
Yeah, so we signed Batchov. Sachi was known as. We signed him pretty early on, I think, if memory serves me well. Signed him pretty on in the winter. So then you've got a long period of time between signing him and the season. And, you know, I was a little bit concerned that he wasn't playing much cricket for his state after Christmas. That's always a concern. So, you know, a little bit paranoid, shall we say, in the build-up to the season that something was aloof, shall we say, and our fears were correct with about 3 or 4 weeks to go to the season, and his state weren't going to let him travel. So it's been a stressful last month or so, especially for Matthew as well, with the sort of dynamics of the family life changing of what to expect that's coming over. Whole host of things, to be honest, you know, redoing visas and going through all the process again so close to the season. You know, a lot of people won't see what happens behind the scenes and a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah, I think, Ben, let's just have a little look at that, because I wasn't fully aware. And I think for the people who are listening would want to know. So you suspected it for a while before because he wasn't playing for his state side.
Yeah.
Did you get feedback around that, and whether he was injured or whether he wasn't being picked? You didn't get anything?
Well, very, very little, if I'm honest. I mean, it's not something, you know, easy to approach, asking somebody that you don't know why they're not playing for their state. But by all accounts, from how I understood it, that his state had a change in staff behind the scene, and for whatever reason, he wasn't the fancied spinner in the side at that moment, which was very strange because his previous couple of years he had very good red ball stats, and he played all but one white ball game before Christmas. But then there was a change behind the scenes. Backroom staff had changed a little bit, and they completely changed their outlook of their bowling attack after Christmas. Right. So he was sat on the sidelines, and obviously India's a massive country. And from what I could understand, he was up and down the country playing what we call district cricket in India. Not district cricket as we know it. This is the smaller districts that make up the states. He was up and down the country playing those. Right. Here, there, and everywhere, by all accounts, trying to get back into the team, which he never did.
Right. So that is, obviously, I personally was looking forward to, to having an Asian cricketer coming over, an Indian who played quite a lot of cricket over here in league cricket, and a great pedigree and could play all formats. But these things happen. But you're 100% right, Ben. The work that goes in, first of all, the research, first of all, identifying who it is, and then there's different opinions, and then it goes back to the MD and his small team to get all the visas, get the work permits, make sure everything's in place without even starting to look at cars and accommodation and flights, etc. But again, Stanley and his team have done a fantastic job in pushing through quickly, and I think it's fair to say, Stanley, Gary Hunt helped quite a lot with the Australian that we then got. Just talk us through that process when you knew that the Indian land wasn't coming, and how it works liaising with Gary and other agents.
Yeah, it's a subject that people are always. We get asked about this quite a bit, actually. How do you find the pros? How do you go about it? That kind of thing. So just going back to sort of how we found Satch, we found him by essentially you get bombarded, and I do mean literally bombarded with names from agents. So Ben, myself, in particular, get emails, text messages, WhatsApps, you name it, just bombarding you with player after player. And without being disrespectful to some of them, because ultimately they are professional cricketers, you've got to sort the wheat from the chaff as to what will work for you, what's at the level that we would require, because obviously the agents don't really bother about that. They just want to place a player with a club and take their reward on the back of it. So that process is quite detailed, and there's a lot goes into that. And ultimately we sat down, and I think we had a list of something like 30 players at one point. So Paddy, Martin put them all into a spreadsheet, and we ranked them all on the various disciplines, and then they get sort of extra credibility if they've been over here and played league cricket and performed and that kind of thing. And that led us at that point to a short list of 2 or 3. And then we looked at some other sort of more detail around there, character references, that kind of thing. And that's what ultimately led us to Sachi. Now, unfortunately, that wasn't to be. And as Ben says, it all sort of fell apart. So then you sort of, the process that we've applied to that goes out the window, because you've got to move quickly to get somebody and get them in the country. So again, it's a bit of a mayday call out to all the agents. Tell us who you've got available. Tell us how long they can come for, what they're going to cost, all that kind of thing. And we've signed Daniel Sal Pietro, and I'll be honest with you, it was a strange one really, because we were having a meeting to discuss where we were going on the pro front and make sure we were all on the same page, and his name hadn't actually been mentioned. And then literally 20 minutes, half an hour before we go into the meeting, Ben got a text message, I think, off Gary. I got a message, an email off Brendan McCardle in Australia, both putting Daniel Sal Pietro forward. And that sort of changed our thinking a little bit. We went in the meeting, and there was a lot of discussion about what we wanted, what we thought would work best for us. And then it was a case of, right, everyone go away, sleep on it, have a think, and we'll reconvene tomorrow. And ultimately what we want to do is try and give Ben what he wants as well. So he's got to have, obviously within reason, but he's got to have a say as to what he wants and what he gets. And then we reconvened the following evening, and Ben had sort of gone through everything in his head, and determined that Daniel was the man for us. And I think it's fair to say that consensus right across everybody. As soon as Ben said it, everybody was absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, and that is it's so important. It's because when I first heard that Batche wasn't coming, I did wonder, is it going to be sub pros for a couple of games, and would it end up we're waiting for someone to come over and then they go in early? So it was really good news to hear that he wasn't, that wasn't going to be the case. So the pros in place again. Ben, please contribute to it as we go through the conversation. Talk us through the other players, Ben. We've got, there's 2 or 3 new players come in. Unfortunately, Tom York Robinson's left, which is a bit of a blow. But but that's life. So Johnny Whitehead's coming back. Ben, talk us through that, and then the other couple of players, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Johnny Whitehead, no stranger to scoring runs down at Lowerhouse. He's travelled about a bit the last couple of years and picked up some different experiences, shall we say. But we all know how good Johnny Whitehead is. And I had a net with him on Sunday, actually, and he's looking really, really good and in some nick, I think. I think he's going to have a big year. He's obviously engaged to get married and in his own home these days. So, he seems content, I think, and in a good place. And I think he's going to excite a lot of Lowerhouse cricket fans this year, I think.
Brilliant. And as you said, we don't need to beat about the bush. We've had him on the podcast. He's daft as a brush. He's, since you were a little kid, you look back at the 2004 Worsley Cup final with him and Joe Martin walking around the ground selling CDs. He's a proper character. I think he's always been a Lowerhouser, but he does have the ability to go and get paid when he went playing elsewhere. But he's come back. Let's hope he gets the runs that we all know he can get, and and he enjoys the cricket as much as as we enjoy him being back down at the club. So Charlie Gansler from Bacup, Ben, just talk. I don't know a great deal about, because you guys have always been in the first team in the last few years, and I've not seen much of Bacup. It seems a good pedigree. He's a good player.
Yeah, another exciting prospect. He's at Loughborough University now, trying to get into the cricket setup there as well. What's he studying, Joe Martin? You know what he's studying, don't you?
Come back to me.
Obviously not, but they were having an in-depth chat anyway at one of the nets.
Biomedical engineering.
There we go. So yeah, bright lad, exciting prospect, ball's quick,
Right.
Batting probably has slipped under the radar a little bit. We only being young and finding his feet, but I think in the long run, his batting will be as good as his bowling. I think he's a really exciting prospect. Same age group, I think, as Henry Cotton, or in and around that age group. But yeah, ball sharp, still a bit raw, but has some exciting attributes, most definitely.
Brilliant. That's so exciting to see him perform. Certainly when the tracks get a bit firmer than they are at the moment, and he can bowl quick. And it really took me by surprise that Tom Walker, is coming back from Australia. I thought the last we'd seen of him, he's still only 21, and we had him on the podcast, and he was such a character, so enthusiastic. That must be a real boost for you as skipper, Ben, to get Tom back in all formats he can play.
I'm surprised as well to see Tom back. Yeah. I thought we would lose Tom for travelling and work for a good few years, if I'm being totally honest. But he loves his cricket, and he's coming back for an English summer, so that's great news. And he's another one similar to Gansler that I think in the long run, his batting will be as good, if not better, than his bowling. He's got an excellent head on young shoulders, and he plays spin really well. Good positive lad to have around the changing room.
No, I agree. You really enjoyed watching him. So that's all good news. And again, Ben, I don't really want to know about the ins and outs of other transfers, but I was a little bit disappointed that Tom York Robinson's left. I think he had some great opportunities, or he had great pedigree 2 years ago, getting lots of runs in lots of cricket. But I don't think he really stepped up as well. I hope he does okay at Rammy, not against us, but have you any views around, Tom leaving? And obviously, I know you're not the type of person to be bitter about it, but he's gone to pastures new, do you think?
Yeah, no, me and Tom have finished on, and his family have finished on really good terms because not many people will know this, but he was a friend. His mum and dad were friends of Lindsay and Blaise before he came to Lowerhouse. Lindsay worked with his mum at the same school. So how that signing came about was that Lindsay had asked me to do some coaching with Tom when he was 9 or 10 years old, whilst he was still at Greenmount. So we've built a relationship up since he was very small. So it's sad in one respect to see him go, but these things happen. And I wish Tom and his family all the best, most definitely. I think he was in a position in his career, because he's obviously been with Lancashire as a junior, and he was in a position where he wasn't probably, in his eyes, getting the exposure that he needed at a first team level to further his Lancashire career. And that's always an interesting journey or crossroads, shall we say. But, my job's to look after Lowerhouse first team, first and foremost. And last year we got to a Worsley Cup final and we're top of the league for the majority of it. So we weren't doing too much wrong. But he sees the advantage of being promised a slot and regular first team cricket. He's going to benefit his career a little bit more at the moment.
Yeah, and as you said, Ben, you appreciate that and you understand that, and I think everyone does. And all the best to Tom. So if I'm Joe Martin, I'll come to you in a minute if you can just gather your thoughts. But I'll go to Duke first around as someone who is overseeing the selection side and the process from the outside. And I know Ben respects you massively in your thoughts and how things are going to be managed with first and second team. We've still got, I would guess now, 4 very good second 11 players who are under 20 who will be pushing for the first team. We've got 2 new players, 3 new players coming in, as well as these extra players. You and the rest of the selection committee are going to manage that for certainly for the first quarter of the season.
We've got a plan. We're going to write all the names down, put them in a bag, and whichever 11 get pulled out first, we're going to pick them. No, we're not. We're going to do what Stan said. We're going to pick the best 11 players. That's what Stan's staggering insight was last week when we had a meeting to discuss where people sat in the selection pyramid. Why don't we just pick the best 11 players? That's great. Thanks, Stan.
Bless you. I mean, we can come back onto that because that committee meeting, I'm led to believe, I've not dug into this yet, but I'm led to believe it was one of the a meeting that will go down in folklore. So we can maybe talk about that afterwards, Joe, once you've answered the question, how you're going to manage this squad.
It's a good question, Jez. We've got more players than there are slots in the team, so it doesn't take a rocket science to work out that there's going to be a few moving parts. It's just the way it is. And we'll see how that pans out. I don't know how much cricket we're going to play in the next couple of weeks. We obviously haven't had any pre-season friendlies, so it's going to be tricky. To select the first iteration of the team. That's what I mean. That's what's going to be tricky. Obviously, from that point onwards, then you've got something to work with. But to start with a blank sheet of paper when you've not had any pre-season is a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah, and I guess that the beauty of the squad and looking at the players from the outside and the way you manage it, Joe, it is going to be difficult for the players that are left out, but they know there will be opportunities. And I think Ben and I spoke about this probably 12, 18 months ago. Because of the different cups and because of the T20s, there will be a little bit of rotation going on as well, which people need to buy into.
There are a couple of other bits as well as the other competitions. Francois doesn't play Saturdays because of work. During term time. So, whilst there are not a load of Saturday games early on in the season, I think the Saturday games start in the middle of May. So, that's going to be one spot that gets freed up immediately. So there will be opportunities for people who don't start to get opportunity to get some spots in the team at various stages of the season. And you never know what's going to happen. What happened last year? We were banking on Tom Walker being around all year last year, and he played 2 games then left. So you can never really, predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
We've been here before where you look and you think we've got this big squad of players and how we're going to keep everybody happy. And before you know it, a couple of injuries, there's a bit of unavailability, and everyone gets ample opportunity to play and do what they can do. So it looks like a problem on paper, but it can soon change, can't it?
Yeah, I think the group of players that there are there and the way that you guys run it with them, there is, of course, there's disappointment, and of course there's going to be the odd issue, but there's no one there going to be ranting and raving and storming off in sunset. So I'm very encouraged about it all, and so should all the the fans for the summer and the people who are listening to this. So Joe Martin, player, you're an experienced player now. Tell us about your view for the season and what you're looking forward to and what you think about it all.
Excellent, Jez. Rather good job of getting him, because it's not been easy. Hopefully the weather can pick up, and as ever, we can beat relegation. Be all right.
We've had a conversation, Joe, a couple of times, not on a podcast. Your positivity level.
I think that is pretty positive.
Well, that's not, is it? But the next few stages, we'll keep working at it, but it will come to a stage where we'll have to kick your head in. So no, Joe. What's this? Your season? What number season is this for you now? The first team?
14, 15.
14. And how many games since you last missed a game?
300, isn't it? League games.
300. Good.
Genuinely don't know. I haven't missed any of the cup games either. Or the team.
No, I don't mean to put you on the spot or embarrass you. It's phenomenal.
No, but
I've look at that.
I've committed to the cause, so I might as well give it my all.
Yeah, exactly. A
lot of lacking talent, Jez, I make up for in commitment.
You're a long time
retired.
Yeah, you're right.
Long time retired, Jez.
Exactly. Keep going. So that's really good, Joe. You're an outstanding stumper, and the way that you've avoided the injuries and you keep going with it all, you commit yourself through it. It is a real bonus for Ben that he's not having the heartache of the wicket keeper is either Nicky, my brother Nicky, or Frank. It depends who's got the greasiest palms.
Do you know, Jez? Actually,
so, yes.
this was the first, not the first year, but I'm genuinely really looking forward to playing this year.
Good. You actually said to me you weren't bothered. You weren't really upset about having to play in the Interleague Cup this year.
No, because we're not doing.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you foxed me. What about T20s? Going to play in the T20s?
Not my decision, Jez, but I'm available.
How's the T20 year, Ben and Dooch? Has there been decisions made around captaincy and what sort
There's been decision made around? Yeah, there's been decision made around captaincy. Paddy did the T20 captaincy last year, and he's going to continue with that.
Okay.
We should mention Paul Stanley. He's come back into the fold as first team manager, and he has got a couple of theories on what we should do with the T20 side. And one of those things is to maybe rest Joe Martin from the T20 side. That's one of Paul's ideas. The thinking behind that is that should Joe get injured in any game, then we would have to pick a wicketkeeper who's never had any first team exposure whatsoever in Kiro. So one of Paul's ideas is, could we rest Joe in the T20s, give Kiro a few games, which would just give us a bit of backup should we ever need it.
Right, so that's interesting that you mentioned that. We're going to come on to that. I was chatting to Stanley on Friday. So, Ben, Stanley's coming in to do, I know he did it with Charlie in a real successful era within the club as being the manage, as we called him. What's your thoughts around that? Is that something you wanted, or has it been forced on you?
No, it's most definitely something that I wanted, and I've been at the forefront pushing for it, if I'm being brutally honest. It's a great place to be, Lowerhouse captain but at times it's a lonely place as well, when things don't go well, and to have somebody there supporting me on match days and taking a bit of pressure off me, and also as well, helping bring through our younger players and our new signings, helping them get bedded into the team and the changing rooms, because not taking anything away from previous captains, but I still see my first and foremost role to be opening the batting and out there scoring runs. And I have to get myself in a sort of very selfish mindset, shall we say, when I'm opening the batting in every game. And you don't always see everything that you might do from down the order or being a bowling captain, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no, it will be invaluable, Ben. There certainly won't be any negative sides of it. He will listen, he will watch, and he will assist. In doing a great job. I'm sure of that. So, Matt Stanley, anything you want to add around the cricket side before we just move on? I have a little point to mention at the end of this, but if you've anything around the cricket side, if you want to bring it up.
The theme at the moment is just hoping for this weather to break and then really looking forward to it, because last season didn't end how we wanted it to, of course, but I don't think there was a number of factors in that. I don't think the weather helped last season either. I think it became a bit of a drag towards the end of the season because every game seemed to be affected one way or another by the weather. So just hope that we get a fair crack at it this year.
Yeah.
And I think that bit of youth that's been added to the team will help a great deal, because there were times where last season where we maybe looked like we were sort of flagging a little bit as the season progressed. So hopefully a little bit of extra youth in there will make a difference on that front as well. So yeah, really looking forward to it. And I think the other thing as well, we haven't touched on it yet, but we've got a really young second team this year. When you look at it, Joe will tell you more about that, Joe Beneducci, but it is a young second team at that, and I think there will be people that will push for places in the first team, but it's going to be interesting to see how they sort of piece themselves together and what happens with them this year as the season progresses.
It will, and you're right. Please, listeners, don't think we're dismissing the seconds or the junior sections. We do intend to have another podcast within the next week. I don't know when it'll be released, but I'm going to get Stan on and talk about the seconds, the thirds, the fourths, and all the different junior teams that are there. But they are so important. We're almost showing off that we've got this big squad that are all fantastic. But you're 100% right. Someone gets few runs and someone's not getting runs in the first team. These people will push through, and it happens. It happens every year. So no, you're 100% right to mention them, Stanley. And we will bring a new episode out. Dooch, anything on the cricket side finally before I go to Ben, and then I just want to speak to Joe Martin about the draw.
No, I don't think so, Jez.
No, Ben, anything you want to finish on for the fans and the listeners and the spectators before we move on?
Just that the boys and myself and the pro, as always, will always give 110% for the club. And the way the season ended last year was a disappointment, but I can assure our 600 and odd members or whatever it is that no one was more disappointed than myself or takes it as personal as myself. So we give our all. We've all got full-time jobs, and the cricket from April to September is like a second job. That's how we take it. So we give our all, and what will be will be.
Yeah, no, brilliant, and they all support you. They know, you walk around, you see a few. I hear the odd grumbling, but they're a real minority, Ben. Everyone appreciates what you commit and what the rest of the players commit. So it is all credit to yourself. So I'll just move on. Just for the last 5 minutes of the show, I just want to talk about the draw, the Lowerhouse draw. It's been quite contentious this last week or two. I got behind with drawing it. I got a few issues with trying to draw it with Joe, with Joe Martin, then not drawing it. Joe's busy. And I've got myself in a sticky situation where I can't just draw it at home like I used to on my own, sat there, and no one else monitoring it or recording it. And I got a bit of it wasn't a sacking, but I might be, my employment might be terminated by the MD sending me a letter, and as such his number came out and he wouldn't.
What a coincidence.
Keep up the good work, Jez. It's whatever anyone else might say, the way you're doing it currently is working really well.
Right, well that's good. So I can carry on with me occupation of doing that, and thanks to Joe Martin for helping with it. But it was ironic. I went, and the time just moves on, as we all know. And before I knew where I was, there was 3 draws to draw. So I got hold of Joe Martin and said, "Can you really help me? Let's draw these quickly." We did it. We did it in about 20 minutes. We had a laugh and a joke. It's out there on the podcast if people want to listen. So for the transparency and everything else that happens, and it was interesting. There was a lot of people that won that were regulars. Matt Stanley, Pete Atherton,
Regular
Charlie.
winner, Matt Stanley.
Yeah, Matt Stanley, he won 100. Pete Atherton, who else? There was someone else.
Charlie won. Feel like
Aggers won. Waddle won.
Yeah,
Gracie.
But I thought if I can give people cash, then it's the best way to do it. So go to the AGM. There's loads of people there who have won. So I'm dishing out the money, and Gracie then starts talking, and he's chatting away. He said, "Jez, have you ever thought of doing it every month?" I think he's been set up, and I think Joe Martin set. I said, "Well, I should do it, Gracie," and I've been bollocked a few times from Matt Stanley for not doing it. He said, "What you need to get is a random number generator. Do
it live.
Yeah, and that was Grace's input. And I said I'd mention it on the podcast to his help. But just whilst I'm on about Paul Grace and Sam Smith, who is Mick Smith's wife, they both come on the committee, Stanley, and I think it's fair to say they're doing Sam's doing a sterling job in getting everyone together and getting lots of functions on. Gracie apparently is just making a nuisance of himself. So Stan, with his comments, I can echo. But is that the right? Am I right there, Stanley? From what I'm seeing from those 2 new members,
you're 100% right. Yeah, it's always a funny one when new people join the committee, because a lot of us have been sat there an awful long time, and I'm always mindful that they come with ideas that we've spoken about before and sort of dismissed, if you know what I mean. And it can feel a little bit as though the first sort of 3 or 4 things that they suggest, you say no. But thankfully, Sam's done a great job with doing the socials and opening the club up when it would otherwise be closed during the winter. And they've been really well received, and there's been some great turnouts at them, and there's been lots of money spent over the bar. And a good sort of atmosphere building, and there's a buzz around the place. And to be fair to Grace, his quizzes have been fantastic. He introduced the quizzes in his Quizzy Rascal. The difficulty of the quizzes does tend to fluctuate, I must admit, and we found the hardest one, the one that we finished best in, but he's made them a bit easier since, and one of the 2 things. And he's subcontracting now. He's done some stuff at the George IV. He's getting a bit of a reputation as the local quizmaster. So we might do well to keep hold of him.
Jez, if I were to give you one guess out of all our committee and members, who would be the one person that disagrees with the correct answers during a quiz?
I bet his initials are S.A.
Correct.
And we'll move on to him as well. Him and Gracie were throats after the AGM. We'd only stopped for 40 minutes, and Stan starts asking questions around something about the oldest country and western singer that had performed some event, and Gracie's arguing with him. Yeah, they seem to bounce off each other.
Can I tell you another story, Jez? Can I tell you another story that's happened in the last few days? So you might recall after the AGM, we were sat talking about how Burnley Football Club were digging up areas of Barnfield, and therefore there might be a lot of AstroTurf available for us that we could use to cover wet parts of the pitch. So Gracie was tasked with speaking to his mate, who happens to be the head groundsman at the turf, to see if he could get his hands on some of this here 3G pitch stuff, so that we could use it on the outfield in certain areas. So on Friday, he rings the head groundsman at Turf Moor. Also Premier League Groundsman of the Year, no less, this guy. So he knows what he's doing with grass. And he says to the Premier League Groundsman of the Year, do you have any of that 3G pitch available? He says, what's it for? So Gracie explains to him that we might want to put some where the bonfire patches, and we have other patches of the pitch that are a bit wet, and we might want to put some on there to try and make the pitch playable. To which he says, that'll look shit. What you're better off doing is, where your bonfire patches, let's dig it out, returf it, and that'll be the best solution for that area. And I'll come and help you, because his son plays football on the pitch during the winter. So Gracie rings Stan to tell him of this advice from the Premier League Groundsman of the Year, and Stan promptly disagrees. That's the right thing to do with the pitch and the grass. So true to form,
He knows
Stan
best.
knows better. Yeah, Stan
Yeah,
knows best.
But Stanny, what you're forgetting there is Stan has Roger as his assistant.
Zig and Zag, as Gracie's taken to calling him.
As the weather gets warmer and we've got more to talk about on the cricket front, we will try and do these at least once a month, if not a little bit sooner. I think we'll set a date in the diary, Joe Martin, for the end of April to do a draw. And also, if there hasn't been any cricket, we can have another chat, get Stan involved in that one around the juniors and the seconds, etc. And maybe we could use some random generator and maybe do it live.
Good idea, that. Very good idea.
And there are some other things. I mean, as Ben said earlier, we should also be have some in person to do at different eateries around the town.
I don't know if this has been mentioned before, but what about doing a podcast after a game?
Yeah,
getting some different players in there fresh after a game.
If we've won,
Well, if we've won, we've had a good day then.
Yeah, if we've won out a good day, fine.
And what happened?
If we've got beat and we've been shafted, no.
No, good idea, Ben. We have done some live ones just using an iPad, and it works as well. The sound is as good, so we can do that. I don't know, Mick Smith and Sam, they want to get involved on one with Eric Kerr and Adam, and Greg into his lad. So we are going to try and do a little bit more of that in a lifetime. Doing it is good fun, and we have a real laugh and getting it together. It's pulling it together afterwards. Certainly, if there's anything inappropriate that can't happen, it's down to Adam and Joe. But
absolutely,
that's their jobs to do it. So, anything else before we wrap this up?
And we might be doing a walking podcast.
Yeah, me and Joe are going to go out for wanders on each Friday and talk about life and nature.
Round St Anne's.
Yeah.
Where it's flat.
Different places, nice and flat. So, anything else from anyone before we go? No, that's good. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast. We enjoy doing them, and we know that you enjoy listening to them. You're always telling us about that. So please support our sponsors and subscribe and like, etc. And thanks very, very much, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
You're listening to Housecast, the official Lowerhouse Cricket Club podcast. Shout out to our sponsors Spoonful of Sweets, Virtual Food Service, Milltown Pies and Rexel. Up the house.